Hey, this is John Hope Bryant, and this is the Money and Wealth podcast series on Black Effect Network and iHeartRadio. It's my weekly ministry of hope. I want you to all get my book, Financial Literacy for All, now a national bestseller in economics and business. I want you to use it as your textbook, as your weekly family meeting book. I want you to read it from end to end and underline it and mark it up. I want you to review it online where you bought it. And then I'd like to give you to write your name, your family name in the inside cover and donate it to a local library, yeah, or a Title I school, an underserved school in your neighborhood with your name on it. And go in after you've been taught financial literacy yourself. Please consider going in and teaching it to young people. We model what we see. A lot of what I'm going to talk about today is about exactly that. So we're going to start out this podcast episode on why success and failure are on purpose. Yes, it's a very provocative topic, and I'm going to unpack a winning mindset and how to win. But some people are going to be upset by the topic title, why success and failure are on purpose. How could you dare say that failure is on purpose? Let me before I talk about my own failure first. Let me first say that I'm not talking about poverty on purpose, not sustenance poverty. So, sustenance poverty, you can't do anything about. That's a roof over your head, food on your table, reasonable health care, what zip code you were born in, what children, what family, what mom and dad had you, what parents had you, what adults uh, had you, and hopefully they became parents and acted like parents, but you have no control over that, right? And so I'm not talking about sustenance poverty, the ability to sustain yourself, but all other forms of poverty outside of sustenance poverty are tied to mindset. And that's what I'm talking about here. And I'm not even talking about poverty. I am talking about a poverty mindset, which I'm going to really get into. It's really important. It has nothing to do with how much money you make, and that's nothing to do with your network. I know a lot of really poor people with money who won't have it for very long. But let me talk about first my own failure. I love bringing in my personal experiences because, as you know, everybody listening to this, if you don't, you should check it out. I literally came up from nothing. Uh, literally was in the bottom quartile of American society. Grew up in South Central Los Angeles. Born in Good Samaritan Hospital. Born to a mom and dad who had effectively a high school education. My mother got her high school education, her high school graduation certificate at age 62. Juanita Smith in March with cap and gown with 18-year-olds. My father had a high school education. They both from the traditional South, built something, and they built a lot of wealth, relatively speaking, in South Central LA. I grew up in South Central LA in Compton and lost it. And my mom had to go live with friends. She told me they were relatives, and went to go buy her first house, working an hourly job. My point is, this is not some dude with a silver spoon in his mouth, but yet I have now concluded several transactions of over $100 million. I sold a company for $120 million in the last few years, a private for-profit company. My nonprofit has facilitated over $4.5 billion in capital to underserved neighborhoods and people. I have millions of clients in offices. I have 1,500 offices, 300 of which are physical offices, and 400 employees that are full time. So imagine my payroll. Hello. $90 million of annual turnover, actually, revenue for my operations in John Hope Bryant Holdings. So I know a little bit about the topic that I'm articulating because I've gone from the bottom quartile to the bottom of the top 1%. And I'm nowhere near done. And I have no problem with, by the way, financial influencers who acknowledge that, hey, I'm a teacher, I'm an inspiration, I'm a motivator. I have a real problem with so-called financial influencers who influence people and who tell them how to build wealth or this or that, and they've never done that themselves. They do it by selling their influence, and I think that that's wrong. I think you need to walk your talk. I think somebody who's made it and lost it has 100% more credibility than somebody who's never made it ever in their life. I mean, I love professors. I love educators. I think it's really an important job and task in life. And they don't have to be experts. You don't have to be an expert in business to teach it as a professor. But I think when you start talking about risk and reward and all these things and risk analysis, and you got to bring somebody in and talking about the opportunity cost and all these things. You got to bring somebody in who actually has experienced that, right? So many people can teach the fundamentals of business and all that, and as long as people acknowledge that, it's all good. But as you're about to hear, I went through it. Well, you read my book, Financial Literacy for All, read my book, Up From Nothing, read my book, The Memo, read my book, How the Poor Can Save Capitalism, read my book, Love Leadership, Banking on Our Future, go to Operation Hope, listen to all my videos, where I talk very honestly about my ups and my downs. And this is a dude who is not selling you wolf tickets. I've walked the talk. And so this is a minor league example of one of my losses, but it still stings me because I actually just concluded last week after 30 plus years of being in it. And it is an absolute failure, a business failure. I won in other ways, but this is my only real estate failure in my that I'm aware of in my life. I got to think about it. Maybe I had another one, but this is certainly the most stunning. And this is where I was the most stupid. Right? Yes, I said that about myself. Yes, I'm not stupid. The decision was stupid. The way I behaved was stupid. And that's one of the things about a mindset as I'm getting into this that you really got to get your hands around. But the trending topic to today, the flossy topic today is me. So what concluded recently was the sale finally of my timeshare. I've only owned one. I'll never own another one again. Um, they call them a timeshare on purpose. And I hadn't thought about this until recently. They don't, I mean, it's complete, it's right there in front of you. When somebody's robbing you, when somebody's trying to separate you from your wallet, sometimes legally they've got to disclose, like a pack of cigarettes literally says on the back, this stuff's going to kill you. Right? So some companies and organizations and industries have to absolutely disclose the dangers that you are under in partaking in what you're doing. And I don't know the ins and outs of timeshares. I'm not that curious about it anymore, but it doesn't say real estate share. So it strikes me that the government forced them to say what it is, a timeshare. Yet millions and millions and millions of people, including me 30 years ago, mistook it. I can't even get my words out. I'm so uh, disappointed in myself 30 years ago. Mistook it as a real estate share. So this is how terrible this is. 30 years ago, this is really hard to screw this up. At the recommendation of a civil rights leader in Los Angeles, who I was trying to impress, whenever you want to make a bad decision, make an emotional one. Whatever decision you make emotionally, it's going to be bad. Please write that down, unless you're driving. Right? You're driving or you're jogging, you're listening to this on the run, just commit it to memory, write it down later. By the way, I'm going to do a podcast on all of my business tools so you can get a sense of all the tools that I use to win. And to keep moving with all the stuff that's going on around me and the 50 or some odd entities that are as part of my overall holding company organization, most of which are in my philanthropy, by the way. Um, um, I get this out, John. I purchased a piece of property in trying to impress this civil rights leader in Los Angeles, who I admired and still admire. It wasn't his fault; it was mine. He got, I found out later, a referral fee uh, by getting me to buy this timeshare. He'd already bought the timeshare. So the way he got over or got more time or whatever they did or a fee was to bring somebody else in. And he knew I admired him. So he used that. And I think we went to lunch or something. I asked for the lunch. And he said, you should buy this thing. So I said, sure. I just wanted to impress him. Again, whatever decision you make emotionally is going to be a bad one. And this timeshare was in Newport Beach, California. Now, anybody who knows Southern California, anybody listening to this, watching this from Southern California, give me some love in the comments if you know what I'm talking about. I bought 2 weeks, two separate ownership units. I got literally percentage of the title of the land now on the beach. Now, it's not on the beach, but Pacific Coast Highway, the beach, and PCH, Pacific Coast Highway, and then Newport Coast Highway, and there was Newport Coast Villas. I won't say who the company is um, that owns this. I don't need to get into a legal wrangle with them. I'm done with them, so I don't need to reopen this. But you can figure it out for yourself if you're curious and nosy enough. I bought this property uh, right across the street from the beach. You can see the water in Newport Beach, California. It's the Gold Coast. I mean, it's how do you lose money? I bought it 30 some odd years ago um, for $35,000. 30 years ago. Think about how much money that was. I financed it through a finance company, maybe a bank. I think it was a bank. Made payments on it. I ultimately paid it off about 15 years after I started financing it. So you do that math. Um, I just sold these. I had to sell them individually, right? But I just sold these units 30 years later. Real estate now on Pacific Coast Highway. This is why the details really matter. In Southern California, you got to be crazy for this real estate not to go up in value. I just sold it for, I think my people told me, when you add up the net to me of both units, costs excluded, I think I made $18,000. Sorry, cleared $18,000. So you say, well, John, dang man, you bought this for $35,000 and you left out with $18,000. That's not so bad. No, it's really really bad because it gets worse. Um, when you do the math, and I did, I've spent over $100,000 in order to keep this property. You have a maintenance fee, right? The maintenance fee, and keep in mind now it's been 30 years. The maintenance fee, get your calculator out if you're stable. The maintenance fee was $3,500 a year for these two units. Okay, so let's do $3,500 times 30 years. Okay, I need to do that again, only because it hurt me so bad. I just have to see it again. Okay, I need to keep doing the number because I just can't believe it. That's $105,000, separate from the $35,000 uh, that that I spent to purchase the unit. Now you add the finance fee from the bank of the 15 plus years that I financed it, plus you add the fact that there was a $200 annual Orange County property tax fee. Yes, a product that just showed I own real property. Uh, that if you didn't pay this $200 property tax, this is my smallest property tax in the history of me owning real estate. If you didn't pay this property tax fee, the state, I don't think it was a state, I think the city of Newport Beach would lien your property. They would put a tax lien on it, as they have a right to do, and they would report you to the credit bureaus. Do you know my credit score took a dump? And well, what happened was the tax liens would show up on public records. It would say John Bryant's a bum. He doesn't pay his bills. That would get reported to the databases that then stream into the credit bureaus, the three credit bureaus, Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax primarily. And those would then say, well, John's a bum. He doesn't pay his bills. And so we're going to whack his credit score. And I'd get hit with a credit score hit negative of, 20, 30, 40, 50 points down because I forgot to pay I was running so hard and so fast as an entrepreneur back then. I didn't have anybody like now helping with me with all the paperwork. I did it all myself. And the stuff would just stack up and I'd get around to it. By the time I got around to it, I wasn't trying to avoid it. By the time I got around to it, and I figured $200. I mean, I'll pay it. The city of Newport Beach law, you're gonna pay this on this date, and then they hit me with a late fee. I mean, when I finally add up the property taxes, the late fees, the tax abatement release fees, the finance fees, the annual maintenance fee, and the maintenance fee was a fee that the company charged me to maintain my own property. And if you don't pay the maintenance fee, they lien your property, which means if you don't pay it for 4 years because you're just like whatever, that you add that up, right? and you basically don't own anything. And that plus fees, and they sell it, they take it back, they foreclose on it. And I'm sure there was a stipulation in the agreement that after 2 years of not paying a maintenance fee, they could just simply take it back in a executive foreclosure. Don't even have to go through the court process because they're smart in their documentation. And you end up with nothing. And making matters worse, I couldn't say when I wanted to go see the place or I want to go stay in it. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm not a postal worker. God bless them. We need postal workers who had, who know every year when they're getting a break, a vacation, and they go with their family to wherever. I was an entrepreneur, so I'm running around and opportunities come up, and I got to go here, got to go there, and so I'm like, well, I scheduled this, but I got to move it, and they're like, you can't move it. That's it. Well, can I sell it to somebody? Can I trade it? No, got to go through them, which means it really was not real estate. This was just this was well, it was real estate and it wasn't. It was primarily me renting time usage on the beach. And my dumb rear end, I had actually thought for a minute I was going to buy every week of the year, so I got it literally own the unit there and go whenever I wanted. Thank God I didn't do that. I'd have got absolutely wiped out. That'd have been 10 times worse than what I originally had done. Um, but I do know of a guy who did it. He wanted to stay there all the time, and so he bought every month of the year. Hello, you could have just bought a unit on the beach, across the street from the beach, an apartment building or a condo. Sorry, not apartment, but bought a condo or a townhouse or something back in the day for $400,000 back 30 years ago. You certainly could have done it, and that would be worth today. I don't know, $2 million, $2.5 million, easy. A condo or townhouse across the street from the beach, easy. In Newport Beach. Yet we owned something today that is not worth what we paid for it because of how it was structured. Now, I learned the lesson and I'm willing to acknowledge that I messed up. And that's part of having the right mindset too. God gave you two ears and one mouth. You listen twice as much as you talk. You got to own your mess. You got to own your mess ups. You got to realize that you screwed up, but you're not a screw up. That you made a mistake, but you're not a mistake. That everybody falls down. The question is, can you get back up? Life is 10% what life does to you, and 90% how you choose to respond to it. Do you react or do you respond? And rainbows only follow storms. You cannot have a rainbow without a storm first. So uh, I learned a lot, and I will never do it again. And it taught me to read documents and be focused and understand nothing good comes easy. How could I buy a $30,000 piece of property? Sorry, $1 million piece of property back then it was a half a million on the beach for $30,000 because you can't without a lot of people in your pockets and your hands and your decision making in telling you what you can do, what you can't do, when you can do it, how you can do it, and charging you every time you sneeze. It was really smart business move for the people who did it. It wasn't very smart for me. And I didn't even rent the place. I ended up giving the place away to my chief of staff, Rachel Doff, or my friend Rob McGrew, or whoever, uh, because I couldn't use it. And so I give it to them, let them go hang out there. So I didn't get a chance to, occasionally I'd go check it out. And then I remember checking it like at midnight one night. And then a business thing came up and I had to leave like a day or two later. And anyway, as you can see it, I'm rather traumatized by it. So let's now move on. So why is success and failure on purpose? My wife Shatra once told me that most behavior, actually she said, all behavior is learned behavior. And I absolutely agree with that. I've said differently, we model what we see. So why does somebody want to be a rap star, an athlete, or a drug dealer in an underserved neighborhood? Right? There's nothing wrong with being a rap star, but I can't magnify my brother Ti. I can't, he's a singular superstar. I can't magnify my brother Killer Mike. I can't magnify Jay Z. I can't, you can't magnify Michael Jackson. God rest his soul. These are one offs, and maybe they had 20, 30 employees in their organization, but they're built around a brand, right? A person, a personality. You can't magnify like entertainers or athletes. So these are unique individuals in the world. I need something that's scalable, and you shouldn't want to be a drug dealer. So, but why do people want these things? Because they model what they see as symbols of success in their neighborhood. So Shay told me, my wife said that most this actually she said all behavior is learned behavior. I agree. I then said to her that it's not about how smart you are or how intelligent or how brilliant or how I didn't say to her. I was just saying in generally because Ambassador Andrew Young and I also have this conversation. I love that man. That you have all these folks with. I just happen to be talking to her about this topic. You have all these folks with these degrees and PhDs and they got this and they got that, and th- they're they seem resentful that somebody else who does not have those things maybe are more successful commercially, and they think that because they have all these degrees, by the way, and you should get a degree, you should get a college degree if you're a black and brown or a woman or you're in an underserved group in America today. You should get as much education as you can shove down your throat. So I'm not anti-degreeing anything. I'm on the board of Clark Atlanta University. I've got honorary PhDs. I have two of them. Ambassador Young has 130 of them. Hello. I give commencement speeches all the time. Everybody works for me as a college degree. Be clear, I am pro education. But just because you have a college degree or an advanced degree does not necessarily mean that you're going to be successful in your chosen endeavor. Intelligence and smarts comes from books, but wisdom comes from experience. And success, listen now, comes from good habits. There you go. I just dropped the mic. That's it. You want to tell your friends to listen to the sweet spot here, tell them to go to about, the 20-minute mark, 21-minute mark of this podcast and pick it up from there. And then you can get the backstory later. I'll say it again. That success is about good habits. Um, Let me tell you about some bad habits. Um, I'm on Instagram. Well, I'm on all the platforms, about 3 million followers. So thank you guys for your support, about 200 million video views. I'm on all the platforms when I get a chance. If I run my businesses, take care of my family, do my thing. I'm on there checking out comments, and I try to comment myself. I'm stunned how people who don't who's so poor they can't afford the OR, who's so broke they can't pay it, so broke they can't pay attention, that clearly are not clear to me for the reasons I'm about to tell you, are not succeeding in their life, in at least financially so, economically so, aspirationally so, because they argue with me over stuff I actually know and they don't. The reason you're listening to me is not because I'm, a man of the cloth or a saint or a prophet or a basketball star or whatever. I'm the hopefully the Michael Jordan of my space. But you're listening to me, you're watching me for, I would hope, a reason. And I shouldn't have to tell you that I've been an advisor for 3 US presidents. I shouldn't have to tell you that I've been honored by 5 US presidents. I shouldn't have to tell you all these credentials and blah, 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 in order to get you to listen to me about what I absolutely obviously know. But these folks will argue with me back and forth. Tell me I'm wrong about about stuff I've already done. Oh, homeownership. That ain't nothing. I mean, we don't own the home. The bank owns the home. Yeah, if you don't pay, oh, this can't be a good deal. I've owned 700 homes. 700. I was the largest minority owner of single family rental homes in America. I sold the company for $120 million, by the way, 2 years ago. That's just one of my ventures. I got a $200 million credit facility, unsecured. I mean, um, uh, n- debt that I didn't have to personally guarantee, right? And uh, hello, who does this? and But they want to argue with me. We can have a conversation and we can go back and forth. You can respectfully ask me this or certainly have that. But if you want to literally argue with me, to argue with a fool proves there are two. I don't argue. Now we can have a discussion. When you start getting rude, you start using foul language. I just block you, right? Not because I don't like other opinions, but because this is a ridiculous conversation and I refuse to waste my time. So one thing that you start to realize when you become successful is not about the money; it's about your time, right? Because time is tied to your focus. It's tied to your peace of mind, and I walk through life consciously oblivious about most things around me because it just doesn't matter. So you can't let anybody waste your time, abuse your mind. And this is like the number one reason why broke people stay broke is they argue over stupid stuff and refuse to listen. God gave you two ears and one mouth because they want you to listen twice as much as you talk. Shut your mouth up sometimes and listen. Just listen. You don't have to agree to it or agree with it. You can, by the way, discard it later. But to have a mentality of don't bother me with the truth, I've already made up my mind, it means you will be broke for life. Let me now talk about how mindset matters when you approach a certain business enterprise. I generally speaking don't like house flipping. Um, yes, I just said that. I don't like house flipping um, because that's not wealth building. That's revenue. That's a fee. So when you flip a house, you buy it, you rehab it, you fix it up, you paint it, you do whatever you do. By the way, I'm not hating on house flippers. I'm about to tell you about a successful house flipper that I do like. So hold on. But I personally don't think it's a good use of my time, my energy, my whatever to do house flipping because you're not building wealth. You're buying the house, you're fixing the house up, you're one step further beyond, you're one step beyond just being a real estate agent. There's nothing wrong being a real estate agent either. I've been one before, but being a real estate agent in New York City, as an example, 40% of all real estate agents in New York City, or about half of them, I believe, maybe it's the majority of them. I check my numbers make $40,000 a year in New York City. It's somewhere between 40% and the vast majority of agents in New York City make $40,000 a year. You know, in New York City, Manhattan, that's broke, 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 broke. But you're going to fancy events, you're going to fancy receptions, you're living the visual life in somebody, and you're showing off somebody else's real estate. And maybe you'll close a deal and get a fee, but you didn't own it before, you didn't own it during, and you don't own it after. House flipping is a version of that. Um, by the way, again, there's nothing wrong with being a real estate agent, but I want you to move from being a real estate agent, fee income, to owning real estate. Okay. I want you to go from being a house flipper to being a house owner. So somebody who's flipping houses is just doing nothing but just creating cash flow, just with bigger numbers. So you buy the house for 100,000. I'm making this up. You put 30,000 in it. You keep it for 12 months, 6 months, whatever it is. You sell it for. I'm making this up now, guys. You sell it for 180. After your fees and everything, you've made $40,000 or whatever, $30,000 net to you, and you do that. 3 times a year. You made about $100,000 in net income and probably a good return on the cash that you put into the property. But if your lifestyle is $100,000 a year, you're broke and you got nothing to share for it, to show for it. There's a couple that I know. I'll leave their last names out of this. But Kat and Kevin, who I know, uh, do house flipping in Atlanta. Now, the way they do it is they buy 5 homes, they flip 4, and they keep 1. Did you get that? So they use the profits from the 4 to pay for the 5th one, so they get a free house. Get that? I'll say it again. They buy 5 homes, they fix them up, they sell them. They keep the 5th one. And now they have, I think they told me, 8 homes that they actually own outright. Most of them own cash, by the way. I mean, they don't have a mortgage note on it. Plus, they have some duplexes, so they're rolling, and so they're creating income and wealth. As my friend Tony Rester would say, you make money during the day, you build wealth in your sleep. When I talk about I don't like check cash and payday loan lenders, rent to own stores, title lenders, liquor stores. It's not that I don't like those businesses. I don't like the mindset behind what those businesses become. A check casher came from a grocery store. Grocery stores used to just sign cash convenient checks for their customers. So why wouldn't you like that? And then after a while they start charging us a modest service fee, 1%, 2% on the face value of the check. Then they realize that they're only making 3% on average of 4% of the stuff on the shelves, and they got to pay inventory for that in the grocery store. The grocery store margins are very thin for a small grocery store. They're like, well, shoot, let me just cash the checks for 1 or 2 or 3%. There's no downside to that. If it's a government check, big company check, whatever, I know the check's going to clear. So I'm just paying. I'm just getting paid. I'm making the same amount of money. So anyway, that's where check cashers came from. It started with as an honorable thing, but then when people start charging you 3, 4, 5, 8% to cash check that they know has little risk on it, or then doing, I think there's nothing wrong with payday loans. But when you get a loan to somebody who you know is financially illiterate, and you refuse to let them make a partial payment to pay it back, and you basically keep them in bondage, and they can never get out of it, in an $18,000, well, 8,000, I'll make this easy, an $800 payday loan turns into a $3,500 obligation that you keep rolling over because you can't make a partial payment. That's not helping you. That's enslaving you, and they know it. So it's not about the business, it's the mentality and the mindset behind it that I have problems with. Okay, let me now move on to give you another example of a mindset, of a strategy that's really was really smart. I'm gonna give you two examples. McDonald's. Now you say, well, okay, well, I got this one. This is a fast food restaurant. No, it's not. It's a real estate play. That's it. They ground lease all the real estate. They own the real estate, in most cases, and ground lease it back to whomever, franchisees or whatever. But they get the fee on that real estate, and the real estate goes up in value. So at least that's what the business plan used to be. Unless they changed it in recent years, it used to be that they were in the real estate business, but um, not but and they made it, and they made cool food and really tasty French fries. Something recently just happened in the last week, uh, involves the founder of Peloton. And this is, again, mindset matters. So this guy who I know, John Foley, I don't know him well, but I've met him a couple times. Nice guy. Was a billionaire on paper. Founded Peloton. We have him here in the house. Great product, in my opinion. And he recently did a bunch of interviews where he acknowledged that he went from a billionaire to virtually penniless. Now, these are made up headlines, because when you're a billionaire, broke means you only have $10 million left. Okay, that's what broke means if you're a billionaire. Did you get that right? And your outflow exceeds your inflow, so your overhead is now your downfall. You made to file bankruptcy. You got to downsize. So he had to sell a $55 million house in the Hamptons. He had to sell a pied a terre, a townhome in Manhattan. But my man's not homeless. He's not living in a trash bin somewhere. He's not living in a flap house. My man's living in New York City. And why did he make this announcement and allow people to run with these headlines? And now it's all over the internet. It's all over YouTube. It's everywhere. Social media. Why did he do this to himself? Because he's smart. He ran his course at Peloton. His bet worked until it didn't. The wrong answer is the right one. It didn't work, and it worked until it didn't. He went through the pandemic and overextended himself, the company of Peloton, during the pandemic. Pandemic ended, and people were like, okay, I'm tired of doing all this stuff at home. I want to get out again. And he'd overinvested and had to leave the company, and most of his net worth left when the stock dived, and he went quiet. And there were two investors who believed in him, and they quietly worked with him. Do you know this man? He just did all this press, did all this publicity, talking about how he went broke. It wasn't about him going broke. It's about free publicity for his new venture, which is called. I'm gonna give him some publicity here. Ernesta. It's a specialized interior design firm that does custom made rugs, amongst other things, for high end families. And I think it's going to do reasonably well. And he's given himself to 2030 to hit. So he's given himself, 5, 6 years to truly make this thing hit. And he's got patient money, but he's not homeless. He's got a proper office. He's got staff. It's just much smaller than what it was at Peloton. And he's living in some place. He's living in one place in Manhattan versus having 3 homes or 4 homes. I think I met him in Sun Valley, so he had at least 3 homes. He probably had 4 homes at that point. Maybe a private jet. Who knows? So yeah, from his perspective, he's broke, but he's not broke. He's just on his reset. But what he brilliantly used, mindset matters. What he said, I'm going to respond to this. I'm not going to react. I'm not going to emotional. I'm going to get smart. I'm going to use this story that everybody's going to want to hear to then drive attention to this thing that no one would otherwise pay attention to, which is called Ernesta, which I had no idea about and would never be telling you about on this pod. I just gave some publicity right now. It had not been out. The trigger was billionaire went broke. How, what do you mean? Yes, I know him. Okay, hold on. Do I feel sorry for him? I do feel sorry for him. He's a nice guy. But, capitalism is a gladiator sport. This is what happens when you take risk. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But uh, my man is on his second round, and I think he's going to be of opportunity. I think he's going to be immensely successful. Mindset matters. So I've now told you about what makes you go broke. And I've told you about what makes you win. Even if you lose, you win. If you fall forward. You got to acknowledge that you don't know everything. You got to acknowledge that you may screw up. You got to acknowledge when you make a mistake. You got to own your problems. You can't say that you're responsible for your successes and God is the blame for your failures. That's not the way this deal works. You got to own all of it. God helps those that helps themselves. Hello, can I get an amen? The Proverbs in the Bible says that to be poor is not to not have anything. To be poor is not to not do anything. And lazy hands make a man poor. That's Proverbs. I'm not a biblical scholar, but I know that's true. That's the Lord being an empowerment leader. Okay. Uh, so let me now go to um, uh, a couple um, quotes I want you to think about, and then I'm going to give you a powerful closing to this podcast. There's a difference between being broke and being poor. Being broke is economic, but being poor is a disabling frame of mind, a depressed condition of your spirit, and you must vow never, ever, ever to be poor again. Success is intentional. Failure is on purpose. In other words, if you do what I'm telling you to do, look, the Lucifer is a punk. He's a fallen angel. God gives the devil permission to exist. That means if you stay in the light, you can't help but do right. You'll never go do wrong doing right. Just keep running, keep walking. The devil, Lucifer's lazy. Failure is lazy. You're hard working. Your middle name is hustle. Around it, through it, up, around it, through it. You gonna get to it, right? You get up early, stay up late. You take, you believe that an entrepreneur works 18 hours a day to keep from getting a job. You're gonna outrun failure. Success is not about succeeding. Success is outrunning failure. Listen to me now. Hank Aaron had the record for the most home runs. Yes, and his wife was at our house a couple of days ago. Billy Aaron, God bless her. But Hank also had the record for the most strikeouts. Did you hear me? Hello? A lot of the leaders in basketball and sports and whatever you love, go and do that. Look, read their backstory. It wasn't great all the time. And sometimes initially no one believed in them. Half those stories. No one backed them, told them they'd be a failure. You can't hit a ball you don't swing at. And if you swing at that ball, you're gonna miss most of the time. But it's not about how many times you miss, it's about the few times you connect. Success is 1,000 fathers and failure is a bastard child. But no one is going to remember your success, your failures. They're going to remember your successes. So just keep swinging at the bat. It's not about home runs, it's about base hits and bunts. Just keep it moving. Like it is hard to hit a moving target. Keep it moving. Never, ever, 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 ever give up. That's not my quote. But I just use it because I love it. It's time to make smart sexy again. We've been making dumb sexy for way too long. We dumbed down and celebrated it. We got to make smart sexy again. And I've already told you, failure is on purpose. It's because you just give up. You just throw your hands up. You say, whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can't, you're right. You say somehow you believe that success is your birthright. No, it's not. God, nobody owes you anything except a chance. You should say, I believe in the James Brown version of affirmative action. Open the door, I'll get it my dang self. So you will succeed if you just keep pushing through your failures. And then what happens with that is you start saying, well, I take no for vitamins. And there's nothing you can do to stop me. And then ultimately the universe, the negative forces of the universe just, You want the negative forces in the universe to when you get up in the morning, say, "Oh crap, he's up." So you've got to understand that this is about your mindset. And whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can, as I said before, you're right. Is the glass half full or is it half empty? It depends who's looking at the glass. John Foley is looking at that glass as half full. Those house flippers I told you about are looking at looking at the transactions, income right now, and the wealth down the road, and they look willing to live for the long term, right? I was not focusing on this one deal I did to impress this civil rights leader, and if he got something out of it, that's fantastic. But it gave me an incredible education that was priceless, and I'll never make the mistake again. By the way, I ended up making a crap load of money on the real estate that I earned money on, and what do I care about this little $30,000 deal that turned into 100 and whatever 50,000, $160,000 that I lost over 32 years. What do I care about it other than it's a lesson? It's an ego thing. I don't, my ego is more damaged than anything else. Here you go. Here's how we're going to exit this podcast for this week. If you enjoyed this, by the way, hope you have. Get my book, Financial Literacy for All. Tell your friends about this podcast. Tell them to tap in, subscribe, tap in every Thursday. New episode drops every Thursday. Tap into the rest of what Charlemagne's doing. Black Effect Network. I'm on the board. Happy to do it at the Black Effect Network. I think I'm the only board member that actually has a podcast at Black Effect Network. So I think that's pretty cool. It's making smart sexy, I think. Go to Operation Hope, get your whole financial coaching and counseling. It's scholarshiped because of the $72 million that we raise every year for you from our partners. So you get it for free. Get 1MBB, 1 Million Black Business Initiative. Start your business. Okay, here it is. Be an eagle. There are three types of birds, like three types of people. There's eagles, there's buzzards, and there's turkeys. And eagles don't fly in packs. You've never seen a flock of eagles. An eagle is a high altitude bird. Eagle is regal, not arrogant, not pumped up, but they are unique. They take the road less traveled. But eagles don't mind being alone. Eagles are flying high until they're not, until they get emotional and make a mistake. Do I have time for this story? Yeah. So the eagle is flying high, and he sees in this pig down the pig pen. The pig is talking mess to him. You ain't nothing. Your mama ain't nothing. Your daddy ain't nothing. The eagle finally says, "You know what? I'm tired of you talking mess. I'm up here, way up here, chilling, doing my thing. But I'm really talking. I know who my family is, but I'm tired of you. I'm gonna show you a lesson. Mistake, emotional mistake. Eagles dives down below his level, dives down way down the ditch, dives down way down the valley, goes down to that pig pen where that pig is, and went to go slap that pig with a wing, his vast, beautiful wing. And that pig looked up and said, "Yeah, just where I needed you." And took some mud in his hoof and threw it over his shoulder and put it on the eagle's wing. Eagle's now out of balance. Eagle crashes into the pig pen. And the pig said, "Yeah, now who's boss?" Stay up there where the air is light and right? Because there's another kind of bird. It's called a buzzard, and a buzzard loves packs. A buzzard's a low altitude bird. Buzzards always player hating, never player congratulating. Always got something negative to say about somebody. Always stepping on your head to elevate themselves. Don't you get? Can you think of somebody around you like that? I don't tell people. People say, "How you doing, John?" "I'm doing fine." "What are you doing, John?" "Oh, I'm not doing anything. I'm good." If they're really curious, they can look it up on social media or something, or read my book. I don't know. I'm not going to answer that question because most people are not actually sincere about it. People are happy for you until you exceed their level. Hello. If they're insecure, now if they're secure, a different thing. But if they're insecure, and most people are insecure, if you exceed their level, then they resent you. They're jealous of you. They're hating on you, and they want you to fail just so they can feel better. Because hurt people hurt people. We're getting some church in here this week. So that buzzard, it admires you but resents you. The low altitude birds. But then the worst kind of bird is a turkey, because a turkey's got wings and can't even fly. All they do is profile, translation, trying to be something they are not. Be an eagle. Now, what's an example of an eagle? What's an example of the road less traveled? That's a book that's at this point 30, 40 years old. The Road Less Traveled by Scott Peck. I love that book. You should read it. What's an example of this? Beyond my own story of the road less traveled. Everybody when I was growing up, everybody told me, "Oh, I never amount to nothing." No, John, talking about the financial literacy stuff and capitalism. Who cares? Let's come party. Let's go have some fun. John, you should be out here hanging out with us. You should be partying with us. No, I'm cool. I'm working. I'm studying. Oh, you ain't doing nothing. That's crazy. They were rolling their eyes at me. And 30 years later, 20 years later, 10 years later, guess who's knocking at my door? Hey, John, man, hey, man, you doing some cool stuff. I just wait for it. You know, um, you think you hook me up? Can you give me a job? Can I get a loan? Can you introduce me to Joe? No, wait, you want me to introduce you to the person I spent all that time building that relationship with, who I went on trips and I went on business meetings and I invested all that time where you were out there partying and sleeping in or whatever, and said that I was wasting my time. You mean that person you want me to introduce you to using my relationship capital? Why would I do that? I don't say that, but why would I do that? So you can embarrass me? Because you show up late for a meeting or don't show up at all because you wanted to have some fun in the short term versus doing the long work in the long term. Again, mindset matters. You think, oh, money is everything. Really? I can give $1 million to a homeless man. If I do nothing else and he does nothing else, he would be broke in 6 months. Why do you think people who win the lottery, most of them, are bankrupt in 5 years? 70% of them bankrupt. Why? Because it's more than money, it's mindset. Why do 70% of all NFL and NBA players bankrupt 5 years after their career ends? And their woman, typically it's a man in the professional sports, a woman divorces them be- because it was about the money, not about the means, not about the mission, not about the mandate, not about the purpose, not about the real love, not about the higher frequency. It was about the money, the money, which will come and will go. But it's really about the mindset. I'd rather you waste my money than my time. You waste my money, I'll make some more money, but I cannot make more time. So Ice Cube, this is my last topic. Ice Cube, put this on Instagram if you want to watch it there. He did an interview and talked about reparations, and it's a story a topic that I don't talk about a lot because I just think it's messy. There's no elegant way to discuss it, really. Because if the country really paid the cost for slavery, which built this country for free, the country would go bankrupt. So and then the other part of it, if we okay, so you just give people money. Well, I already tell you what happens. You just give people money, and then the country that was built on capitalism turns into a country about socialism, and the country will fail anyway to either do bankruptcy or change in culture. Anyway, so it's really a hard conversation. But do people deserve something? Yeah, they deserve something for the reasons that we all talked about. Slavery was horrible. Built this country for free, and black people built it and weren't paid for it, and it was horrible, horrible, bad capitalism. But what's a smart way of going about it? So Ice Cube said something. He said, "Wow," he said, "Help." Can I say it on radio? He said, "The heck with reparations. Give me access to capital." I thought, let me. I'm listening now. He says, we don't have access to capital. He to explain how in the inner city. So it says, why do you think all these smart people are robbing, from stealing from each other? You think they're just, uh, you know, morally unfit? These are good people who turn bad. There's no economy. There's no way to take care of your family. So you end up becoming versus being a union organizer, you become now I'm saying this, you become a, a gang leader versus becoming an entrepreneur, a small business owner, you become a drug dealer, which is what an illegal entrepreneur is, a drug dealer. Import, export, finance, marketing, wholesale, retail, customer service, security, territory, logistics. You're not talking about a dumb person. You're talking about a misdirected person with a bad business plan. So they go they create this underground economy because there is no capital to grow a real economy. Man, we hustle. Black people, brown people, we hustle. We've been doing so much with so little for so long. We can almost do anything with nothing. So imagine what happened if we had access to capital, education, opportunity, low interest rate, low cost of capital, low interest rate cost of capital, access to premier prime capital in real numbers, the education, the know-how to how to run a business, financial literacy, uh, and opportunity at scale. My God, we kill it. And we will. That's what I'm trying to build. That's what me and others are working to build, just that. The Federal Reserve of the hood. So I agreed with that. And I'll go one step further. I said it on Instagram that I think there should be like a $10,000 scholarship for higher education for every person who can prove they're the descendants of slaves. I was a descendant of slaves. I don't need the money. I'd waive it, but my relatives could and do need it. And because we need a high education nation. in order to go to to move in this artificial intelligence and robotics and everything that's coming next. We need a high education nation, and that's what this nation should do: is to educate every black person for with a scholarship for $10,000, which is doing well. With the least they should do, and then there should be structured access to capital programs. I won't get into in this podcast, but I agree with him on that, and I disagree where he talked about that he's not voting for anybody because all the candidates are bums. That's not true. That's just not true. There's actually a very good candidate running. There's only one candidate running at the moment. I won't get into that, as I've advised Republican and Democratic presidents, so I'm not partisan. But there's only there's only one candidate running today that's legitimate and ethical and actually cares about you. And you should vote. You better vote if you care about your democracy and you care about your children. You care about you. You better vote. This is extraordinarily consequential. So I disagree on that, and I think he's wrong on that. But we can disagree without being disagreeable. I can say I applaud him on one thing, and again, mindset, and not agree with him on something else. And I'll leave you with how I live my life. Talk without being offensive. Listen without being defensive. And always leave even my adversary with their dignity. Because if you don't, they'll spend the rest of their life trying to make you miserable. It becomes personal. This is John Hope Bryant. This is Money and Wealth on the Black Effect Network on iHeartRadio. Go get your scholarship at Operation Hope. Go get your book, Financial Literacy for All, Financial Literacy for All, from wherever you buy your books. And tell your friends about this podcast and tell them to follow. Let's start a movement in civil rights, from civil rights to civil rights. Let me know what you think about this podcast and this episode. Love and light. I'm out.